The Chicago Bears never had any business winning that game against the Washington Commanders. So you can't help but laugh at how the final 10 minutes or so went with your backup center fumbling a ball at the goal line and then giving up the game-winning Hail Mary play. It's just another chapter in the ridiculous history of Chicago Bears football.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. On the show today, we have to look back at a ridiculous Bears-Commanders game. Whenever these two teams play, weird, ridiculous things happen, and this was no shortage of it. We weren't even sure if Jayden Daniels was going to play. Then we get the quarterback matchup that we wanted, but neither quarterback plays well, particularly Caleb Williams struggles quite a bit until the fourth quarter when he comes up super clutch and brings his team back in a game they really had no business taking the lead for, but we get funny stuff with the center getting the handoff and the fumbling, and then Jayden Daniels and the Hail Mary. There's a lot to go through from this game, and we'll also look ahead a little bit of like where you start to pick up the pieces after this one as well. But we need to start with the Hail Mary because that play was funny. I mean, for the game to end that way is hilarious. The Bears did not deserve to come back and win that game, but we all thought they did when Roschon Johnson punched it in from the 1 yard line. And okay, Jayden Daniels gets one heave to the end zone, but what are the odds that that's actually going to hit, right? But of course, he gets the miracle storybook ending to his game against the number 1 overall pick in this battle for who's going to be the offensive rookie of the year so far. And you just can't, I mean, of all the ways for that to end, right? To be tipped up and then caught by Noah Brown by himself in the end zone, which a bunch of players looking back at him. And don't come to me with there was holding on the offensive line, or, there was an illegal block in the back, or whatever you want to call on the pass rush up by Jayden Daniels. Get out of here with that stuff. They never, ever, ever call that on Hail Mary plays. So it's not like the Bears got screwed because every team gets screwed in that same way. I mean, you might not like that that's how they do it, but they do it that way for everybody. So it's not something that the Bears have been slighted in a way that other teams haven't experienced themselves. The problem here is not that, hey, they held you. The problem is that you let him catch it in the end zone, that you didn't execute Hail Mary defense properly on that play. You didn't have the player in position behind the jumping masses of receivers to be there in case of a potential tipped passes. That's textbook how you have to defend the Hail Mary. And not friend of the show, but certainly someone we love and respect a lot around here, former NFL safety Matt Bowen, who does a great job breaking down NFL and the Bears at times, has written about Hail Mary defense and what it's supposed to look like and what then the Bears did wrong on this play. We don't have to get too into the X's and O's weeds here, but essentially, when you put all those deep players back, depending on which side of the field the quarterback is throwing to, you usually have, you have players running with the receivers, and you have a bunch of deep guys behind them. And so everyone who's running with the receivers is just locked on to man coverage. Okay, whoever's going to be running with this guy, there's 5 guys running downfield, and you got 7 guys back there deep. So you can have everyone locked on in man coverage with still 3 guys deep behind them to help in safety type over-the-top coverage. And so when the ball's in the air and they're setting up where the ball is going to land, you have one person who's in front of the catch point. In case the ball gets batted forward, you got to have a defender there to make sure that the ball doesn't get batted forward and caught by another player and then run in. So you have to have one player in front. You have to have, obviously, a deep player who's in the middle of that jump ball pile to just try and add another body to swat it away. And then you need a deep player behind the jump ball zone in case it gets batted backwards deeper into the end zone. Of course, then on the play as the Bears ran it, they didn't have that deep player behind. It was just Noah Brown of the Washington Commanders who did a great job of catching that play and making the touchdown. But someone was supposed to be there. Bears head coach Matt Eberflus was asked after the game who was supposed to be there. He said he's got to look at the tape because it depends on where Terry McLaurin went on the play. Essentially, they were trying to double team Terry McLaurin on that one to make sure he didn't get it. And depending on where he went, one of those players was supposed to go off and then be the back end player, and neither one of them did. But if you look at the NFL, their next gen stats, they have instantly like the GPS play afterwards, where every player is represented by a dot, and you can watch the dots move across the field and see where each player went on that play. As I look at once the ball is in the air on that dot play, I don't know that it ended up being either of the players that were covering Terry McLaurin, because it was Jalen Johnson and Tremaine Edmonds, and McLaurin was the guy who was waiting nearer to the line of scrimmage. McLaurin is waiting for the batted pass forward. He was one who would have caught it had it gone short, and so they had double teamed him to make sure it wouldn't go short. So then in the end zone, you had Tyreek Stevenson, Jalen Jones, Kevin Byard, Elijah Hicks, and Josh Blackwell. And as I look at the play, I certainly can't sit here right now and definitively say this is the player who messed up on that play. But I would guess it was either Tyreek Stevenson or Elijah Hicks, because when the ball is in the air, you've got Josh Blackwell playing really tight man coverage on number 12 for Washington, which is Luke McCaffrey, the rookie. You've got, looks like Jalen Jones is covering Zach Ertz, the tight end. And then you've got Kevin Byard, who's covering Noah Brown, the receiver who ended up catching it. They're all sort of isolated on those guys one-on-one, but it's Stevenson and Hicks who are floating around not covering anything. I would imagine because Stevenson came from the backside of the play, that he would probably be the guy traditionally who would come over and be the deep behind the jump ball group pile. But I can't definitively say that at this point for sure, but it looks like it was either Hicks or Stevenson that probably should have been the one deep, because everyone else was responsible for covering somebody man-to-man, and two guys were responsible for Terry McLaurin, who was underneath and away from the play anyway. So the Bears definitely botched their Hail Mary coverage here, right? Yes, it is a lucky play for the Commanders. There's a ton of luck involved with that, 100%, but also the Bears did not cover the play properly and made a mistake on defense. After the defense had been so good all game, had not allowed a touchdown up to that point, 4 field goals for Washington until then, all of which were in the first, oh no, not all in the first half, all in the first 3 quarters, 3 of which in the first half there. Like, this defense is what kept the Bears in it well enough to come back in the fourth quarter and take the lead with 25 seconds left in the game. And yet, the one time we needed them on what's supposed to be maybe not the easiest play of the game, but like Hail Marys don't work almost ever. They were out of position. Somebody was out of position, and I suspect either Stevenson or Elijah Hicks, but I think we'll get a more clear answer from Matt Eberflus on that tomorrow once he actually gets a chance to review the tape. So that's both like the ridiculousness of the whole situation, but also the seriousness of like, hey, you've got to at least have a guy back there, right? Okay, if the ball gets tipped and Noah Brown catches it, well, you still have a corner right there to try and defend him. And like, even through the coverage, he makes the play on the tip. Okay, you kind of got to tip your hat to the Washington Commanders there. But to not even have anybody there to make it that easy of a catch for him is a breakdown by the Bears defensively, and falls on them for not being either prepared properly or not being able to do what they've practiced doing on Hail Mary defensive plays. That wasn't even the most ridiculous part of the end of that game, though. I mean, the way the Bears were able to come back in the game with some really clutch throws from Caleb Williams, and then the fumble at the goal line, I think has to be the silliest thing we saw throughout this game. So we'll look at just some of the ridiculousness of what was the final 10 minutes here, where the Bears had no business being back in this game, but got all of our hopes up again nonetheless. Next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. I'm on LinkedIn, and I bet you're a part of LinkedIn too. And if you're not, that's okay. But a lot of your friends, family members, and coworkers are all a part of the LinkedIn community. And that's why it isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Locked On Bears is also brought to you by PrizePicks, the better way to play daily fantasy sports, because PrizePicks puts you in complete control. PrizePicks sets stat projections for players across not just football, but basketball, baseball, hockey, tennis, and beyond. And then you pick more or less on at least 2 players for a chance to win up to 100 times your money. Unlike the other daily fantasy platforms where your lineup is going up against other people's lineups, and you can only win depending on how well other people do against you. This is just you versus the PrizePicks projection. So you can pick passing yards for Caleb Williams or rushing yards for DeAndre Swift or players from any team in any sport. Right now, they're going to make it super easy to get started, because if you download the app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL, they're going to give you $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. So you put in $5, you make your picks, and whether your picks are right or wrong, they're going to give you $50 added into your account either way when you download the app and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL with PrizePicks. Run your game. This Bears-Commanders game was miserable for 3 quarters plus. The Bears offense couldn't get anything going. The defense was holding the Commanders to field goals, but you just kind of felt like nothing was breaking the Bears' way, and that eventually things were going to keep wearing down. It really felt like classic Chicago Bears football, like back to the Lovie Smith era and stuff, right? Where it's just like, man, you're really proud of how well your defense is holding up against, we should mention, the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL on the other side of this ball. And we'll talk about the defense a little bit more as we keep moving here. But it was a great defensive performance. Passing game was completely out of rhythm. Caleb Williams had, for 3.5 quarters, a bad game. He had a great fourth quarter, but he was bad for 3.5 quarters. And that's okay, because he's a rookie quarterback, and rookie quarterbacks are going to have ups and downs throughout this process. And I don't think we need to panic too much that, Caleb Williams had 4 completions for 36 yards entering the fourth quarter. That's bad. It's not good. We shouldn't be celebrating it, right? But the way that he was able to respond late in that fourth quarter felt more important to me than what he had done through the first 3 quarters. Throughout that process, quite a bit of hilarity, right? Because Washington gets the ball early in the fourth quarter, and they go back to their no-huddle offense. Bears defense finds a way to make a couple of nice stops in there. They force a punt, flip the field, so the Bears have it at their own 15-yard line with 10.5 to go. They get the running game going a little bit to DeAndre Swift. Caleb finally gets into a little bit of rhythm, gets Cole Kmet involved in the game for the first time, and then makes the throw of the game. The most impressive play Caleb Williams had made all game was 2nd and 12 from the Washington 35. Karana Magaji lets a blitzer come right up in the B gap, unblocked into Caleb's face. He floats it right before he's hit, drops it into DJ Moore, who makes a great catch at the sideline and takes a really hard hit and was down and clearly in a lot of pain as he tried to work his way out the field. The play of the game where you're like, holy crap, all of a sudden, there's the number 1 overall pick we've been looking for. Where has he been the first 3 quarters? But finally, he's back and dialed in, and there's the DJ Moore connection. You're thinking in that moment, the Bears might actually be able to win this game. This is the beginning of the roller coaster, right? We're going up to the top of the roller coaster and excited for this ride that we're on. They get it to 1st and goal at the 8, and then Caleb Williams gets, I think DeAndre Carter gets it down to the 1, and it's 3rd and goal at the 1, and it's after they'd kind of botched short yardage early in the game, finally they come out and say, 3 tight ends, a fullback, and a running back. Let's punch this in the way that we've seen this team be better at short yardage. But hold on. Instead of handing it off to Roshan Johnson, you turn and you hand it off to Doug Kramer, the backup center playing fullback, who had been in the game at left guard earlier because of the injury to Tevin Jenkins and then the injury to Bill Murray. And the handoff doesn't even get into his hands. It bounces off of his chest plate. And it's just what are we doing? What is happening here? Whose idea was this? Why is this the plan? And Matt Eberflus said afterwards, like, that was in the playbook. That was one of their, if they need a yard, that's one of the plays that they can go to that they've apparently practiced. The handoff didn't look very practiced to me, but like every other aspect of that was practiced. And of course, just bounces right off him directly into the arms of Daron Payne, or was it into Johnny Newton, who basically caught it out of the air, and then he takes off running, and we never hear a whistle. So he's like running full speed. Everyone's looking around like, is he down? Is it a fumble? What happened to the ball? Where did it go? And he ends up getting the oxygen mask on the sideline, even though he was marked down at the moment. Like that whole sequence was so funny. The decision, the fake, the play call, the botched handoff, the recovery by Newton, no one knows if the play is dead or not. So Roschon Johnson's trying to pull the ball out of Johnny Newton's arms, and then he's still running. They run all the way, and we don't really hear the whistles until he gets to the 10-yard line and runs into the end zone anyway. And then they cut to him on the sideline with the oxygen mask. Like, it's comedically like football funny. Like that's like scripted stuff there of like Bears finally find some offense and they fumble it, handing it off to the backup center. Like that is exactly how this goes. But then Washington goes 3 and out. The Bears get the ball back again with 4 minutes left. And surely they can't do it again. Surely that was their one and only opportunity to try and win this game. But then Caleb Williams again comes up clutch, gets a couple of nice little plays going and works the offense down the field there. Rome Odunze gets a little bit more involved, hits Keenan Allen again in there. DeAndre Swift, it takes some time off the clock, and so they get it down to first of all, 3rd and 5 in the red zone. You remember this? They hand it, or Williams ends up kind of like scrambling it himself on back-to-back plays, like design quarterback runs, including on 3rd and 5. So they put themselves in this super unnecessary 4th and 3, where we're all like, oh, geez, they're going to blow this in the red zone once again, aren't they? Somehow they get the pass interference, getting a nice route from Keenan Allen in the end zone. Like, Caleb's just trying to throw that up there, and Keenan does a great job drawing the pass interference on the play. So all of a sudden, oh my God, you went from like, you thought you were going to win at the goal line, to fumbling with Kramer, oh God, we're screwed, to driving it back down into the red zone, hey, you think you're going to win again, to 4th and 3 in the red zone, oh geez, we're screwed, to 1st and goal at the 1 after the pass interference, and Roschon Johnson punches it in, and you're like, holy crap, there are 17 or 27 seconds left in this game, and somehow the Bears have a 3-point lead, and they got the 2-point conversion. And then Washington comes out, picks up a couple of chunk plays, and we get the aforementioned Hail Mary breakdown that we just talked about. I mean, that is an insane sequence of events. Like when you look at the win probability charts, where it's a bar graph that kind of shows like over the course of the game what your win probability is from start to finish, you can really see the hilarity play out there, because obviously the win probability all game was Washington's favor, right? Like somewhere between 50 and 75% all to Washington towards the bottom. But then like right there in the mid 4th quarter, you see one little spike up where the win probability passed from 50% Washington to 51% Bears. Just this little nub crosses over the threshold where the Bears win probability was higher. That's the moment they had the ball at the 1-yard line and handed it off to Doug Kramer. And you can literally see the roller coaster ride on the win probability, right? The roller coaster goes up, and then Kramer fumbles, and then you go all the way back down. But then the Bears drive back again, and when they get back in the red zone, the roller coaster goes back up, and then when they score, the Bears win probability goes up into the 90s. I haven't seen an exact number, but like the Bears were like 90-something% win probability after they scored that Roschon Johnson touchdown, and then your roller coaster then takes the deepest drop possible. Like it starts to look like it starts out like a normal sort of heart rate of some little ups and downs, and then we have a heart attack at the very end. And of course, that's how the Chicago Bears lose. That's just the kind of wacky, crazy, funny, silly, stupid game that the Bears play. All game, win probability, losing. You should lose this game. Oh, Kramer at the goal line. Maybe you guys could still win. Oh, no, never mind. Sorry. Oh, now you're winning. And then obviously totally game over. That encapsulates a lifetime of Chicago Bears football in one sequence there. In one final 10 minutes of the 4th quarter, you got it all. And you can either sit there and be miserable about it, or you can laugh at how ridiculous it was. And I'll certainly allow you to make whatever choice that you want there. But I do think we should take a step back and kind of, okay, pick up some pieces here. the Bears lost. We thought they were going to lose for most of that game anyway, so we don't have to get caught up on how they lost. Yeah, the Hail Mary and stuff is obnoxious, but like they were down 12-0. And they couldn't do anything. We kind of thought they would be losing the whole time. So where do we go from here then? They lost to Washington. They should have been able to beat a team like Washington, or so we thought. So are they frauds who weren't actually any good, or do they just have some new flaws that Washington highlighted that they now need to adjust and make sure that certainly Minnesota doesn't try and do a lot of some of the same things here coming up in a little bit. We'll look at where the Bears go from here next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by Gametime, the best way to get tickets for all of your favorite live events. I've got the Gametime app on my phone, and I use it all the time. The Bears, you can always get Bears tickets on Gametime all the rest of the season. You can usually find some pretty good deals, especially at the last minute. That's kind of their thing at Gametime, but not just football games. You've got comedy shows, concerts, theater events, you name it. They've got it all in their app. And what I love about Gametime is that you can see your view from the seat you're purchasing before you buy the tickets, so you know exactly what you're getting with your ticket purchase. And you can also turn on all-in pricing, so there aren't any added fees in the process, and you know exactly what you're paying when you first pick those tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. This Bears loss is a lot more important than giving up a Hail Mary or fumbling at the goal line. Like, yes, those are unlucky, stupid, bad, and kind of funny plays, but the more important things are what happened to the first three quarters and also like those drives in the fourth quarter. Like, I think the bigger picture takeaways from this game is like, geez, this offense still really couldn't get going. Then Caleb Williams had a super clutch fourth quarter where he absolutely dialed it in and looked amazing once again. And all along the way, the defense was great the entirety of the game. And but yes, one bad Hail Mary play was bad defense, but the previous 80 plays of this game, they were pretty darn solid. So I'm not going to kill this defense for one bad play when they were great for the rest of the game, and the offense should be able to score more than 15 points to win a football game like this. The defense held, even with the Hail Mary, the defense held Washington to 18 points. That's a winning defensive performance overall. With injuries at safety and at cornerback, two backups in those positions against the number one scoring offense in the NFL this season, that to me feels like a win defensively. Like, yeah, we can complain about some of the missed tackles and the lack of contain on Jayden Daniels at times, and Tyree Stevenson got burned for a big play on the field. Like, yeah, there were weaknesses and moments, but like that's been a pretty standard operating procedure for this Bears defense, right? They haven't been literally perfect. They've had every game they'll give up a big play or two and have a couple frustrating moments here or there, but like over the course of the game, they were really solid. That's not that big of a deal. The Bears offense, on the other hand, we wanted to see them come out of the bye week and start hotter, get some early points scored, and instead they can't score until the very end of the third quarter was when DeAndre Swift's breakaway touchdown run was. 43 seconds after the third quarter is when they finally got points on the board. And that's the bigger concern for me here. Great for DeAndre Swift to get the breakaway run, and he had a couple other nice runs in this game. Ended up averaging 7.2 yards per carry, 129 rushing yards on 18 carries in the touchdown. Like, he ended up having a good game. And that's a lot of why you invest in weapons around Caleb Williams, so that somebody can step up when the rest of the offense is struggling. This week it's Swift. We've seen Rome Odunze step up in games. We've seen DJ Moore step up in games. We've seen Cole Kmet have the step-up game. This week it was DeAndre Swift's turn to step up and make the huge play when the Bears needed it. That's why you get 4 or 5 different good weapons around Caleb. That's why you invest in a lot of weapons and overload on weapons instead of putting all your eggs in like one wide receiver basket or anything like that. You got to have different options there. But the concern a little bit more is that Caleb Williams was doing too much early on. The timing was off. He wasn't on the same page with his receivers. And I think a lot of that, or some of that, can be attributed to the bigger issue that we take away from this game, the offensive line. Disastrous in a lot of ways. Really, really tough game up front. And it felt like it was tough even before the injuries. The injuries made it worse. But they were struggling before Braxton Jones got hurt. And they were struggling before Tevin Jenkins got hurt. And before Bill Murray got hurt. Like, yes, it's easy to look at the final of the game and say, well, yeah, the offensive line was bad because you had your backup rookie left tackle in there and your third string left guard, who's really like your third string center, who's more like your fourth or fifth string left guard. Like if everyone was healthy, Doug Kramer's probably your fourth or fifth string left guard who's in the game. And if everyone's healthy, Karana Magaji is probably your third or fourth string left tackle in the game. That made life more difficult for the Bears offense. But life was already difficult for the Bears offense before those guys went out. And the Bears offense ended up playing some of its best football with those guys in late in the fourth quarter. And I think a lot of that was Herculean individual efforts from Caleb Williams throughout that process there. But the concern for me taking out of this game was that the Washington Commanders seemed to identify the strategy for disrupting this Bears offense in a way that the last few teams had not been able to. You blitz the heck out of this offensive line, you stunt, you pressure, you throw a lot at them, and you make this Bears offense beat the pressure and the blitz. This game was the most blitz the Bears have faced all season. The initial numbers from PFF, that they still got to go through all 22, but they put out at least like their live watch numbers, had Caleb Williams blitzed on 60% of his dropbacks, 61% of his dropbacks in this game. More than half the time, the Commanders were sending extra pass rushers after Caleb Williams, and this offensive line could not handle it. They were struggling once again to pick up blitzes, to pass off linemen, pass off pass rushers. Some of that had to do with getting backups in there. That made life more difficult, but again, was also still a problem when this offensive line was healthy there. And so it concerns me that they're still having some communication issues and blitz pickup issues when you do have to face Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings twice still on your schedule. And the Detroit Lions have kind of quietly been one of the heavier blitzing teams in the NFL this season, and they're still coming up twice on your schedule. You have the Green Bay Packers who are going to look at that and say, yeah, we should probably blitz the heck out of the Chicago Bears offensive line and make them stop us. Now, maybe you could point to it and say, okay, should the Bears receivers do a better job of getting open against the blitz because they should have fewer guys back in coverage? That's probably part of it. Should Caleb Williams be more decisive with some of those passes against the blitz? That's also probably part of it. But at the same time, like when a free rusher is coming into his face, how much do you expect any rookie quarterback to do? I mean, even he's the number one overall pick. Like, it's just a tough spot to be in offensively, but it does feel like a formula for success for opposing defenses until the Bears find ways to have better answers for it. And so, like, some of that, I should say, also falls on Shane Waldron. Like, okay, they're blitzing you a lot. What are you going to do? Can you get quicker passes? Can you set up better screens? I mean, like actual screen passes. They didn't do a ton of that in this game. At least it felt like it anecdotally here. The screens hadn't really been working much this season, but they certainly can work a little better against the blitz than they can when it's just a four-man rush and guys are in coverage. The Bears ran 3 screens all game, according to PFF so far. They didn't run a ton of play action either, but maybe some of that's because of the blitz. You don't want to run play action and hold on to the ball more. You just would like to see Shane Waldron have better answers for Caleb Williams, especially if you could have a whole bye week to prepare for this game, to understand, to have an extra week to look at their tape and say, how are they going to attack this quarterback? Maybe they blitzed you more than you thought you would, but you should still have answers any week anticipating the team might blitz you more. I think it's a repeat of some of what we saw Houston do back in week 2, right? A lot of stunts, a lot of blitz, challenge that communication. I just don't think we saw the Jaguars or the Panthers or the Rams do quite as much of that comparatively. Certainly not compared to what the Commanders did this week, where it was really just a lot of blitzing overall. And, also the talent of the pass rushers matters a little bit here too. I mean, Johnny Newton and Deron Payne were pretty vicious on the interior. It's not a dominant pass rush from Washington, and that's where the blitz tries to make up for it a little bit here, but they're not a pushover defense either. They're not elite defense, but they're not terrible either. And so that's where some of the concerns come for me. At least you feel like you've got, you thought you'd have some easier games against the Cardinals and the Patriots in the next 2 games before you play your divisional opponents for the first time this season. But both the Cardinals and the Patriots won on Sunday. The Cardinals hit a game-winning field goal over the Dolphins. The Patriots beat the New York Jets. Not that means the Cardinals and Patriots are now good teams, but they're certainly not as bad as they may have looked a few weeks ago. So we'll see what's in store for this Bears team that ends the win streak, comes out of the bye week with a disappointing defeat and a lot of work to still do from here. But they're a young team. They're going to have ups and downs. And we said from the start of the year, the Bears are going to win some games that maybe they shouldn't, and they're going to lose some games that maybe they shouldn't lose either. And so this is one of those games that on paper you felt like you could have been able to beat the Commanders but didn't play up to it. And there's going to be at least a game or two this season where on paper you think the Bears should lose going in, and they'll find a way to win. So buckle up, because this Caleb Williams rookie season roller coaster is far from over. That's why you have to hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to the Locked On Bears podcast, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. A lot more to break down from this game on tomorrow's Locked On Bears podcast, so come on back and make us your first listen again tomorrow and each and every single day. Before you know it, we'll be turning our attention to the Cardinals and getting ready for the next game. Flushing that Hail Mary behind us, we can forget about it, move on from it from here. And I hope, even though it's a tough loss to swallow, that at some point today, you can still find another opportunity to bear down.